Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the Bird's Eye View with Simon Bird. I'm your host, Andrew Musgrove, and today myself and Simon are going to bring you our player ratings of the season so far with 11 Premier League games gone. Who has impressed in that time and who has room for improvement? This episode is brought to you by NORD VPN, and if you want to secure yourself against the hackers and scammers who could potentially get your details, especially when you're using public Wi-Fi, this is a subscription for you. NORD VPN offers you that protection you need on all your devices and for the monthly price of a premium cup of coffee. And one sign-up allows you to use your new NORD VPN subscription on 10 devices. Why use it? Well, you'll get a notification should any of your details be leaked or your cyber security compromised. And having got that notification a few weeks ago, I'm very glad I did, and you will be too if ever you should need it. We've got a very special discount offer for our listeners and viewers. Head to nordvpn.com/Toon to take advantage of it. You'll get an extra 4 months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with NORD's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box. Thank you to everyone who's taken advantage of this offer. You are really supporting the podcast. Thanks to NordVPN for coming on board. Let's get on with the show. Simon, welcome back. How are you doing? You keeping well?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, all good.
Grand. Newcastle United going well on there?
They are going very well. I think we said a couple of weeks ago when we spoke that it was a massive week, didn't we? And they had 3 huge games. We didn't expect them to come out of those 3 huge games with 3 victories, but that's what they've done. And it's totally changed the mood. It's kind of changed the optimism, or they maybe recalibrated the achievements that everyone thinks that the team could do, because that Premier League is so tight with about, was it 3-4 points separating 12th to 3rd place. So it's all to play for, and they've put themselves in a good position.
One thing I've learned over the last week or so is that football is a very, very fickle game. Well, maybe not learned it, it's been reaffirmed, because we had lots of Newcastle United fans, some big social media accounts losing their heads a couple of weeks ago, and now the Champions League is back on. I mean, where do you stand?
I was watching that Chelsea game as well, the Chelsea away game, and it wasn't going very well. And there is a big temptation to go on Twitter or social media or wherever and have a rant and have a dig and get your frustrations out there. And I've learned over many years not to do that, just to sit tight, see how it unfolds, trust the players, trust the footballing gods, and to just let it unfold and see how good these guys are and whether they can turn it around. Because quite often when they do turn it around, you end up looking pretty stupid when you've had a pop at the manager and said he should go, or various players, because invariably they're a very good squad, and they will turn it around and it'll pan out okay in the end.
But you, like most people said, it was a huge 10 days. And I think Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall probably knew that as well. Like, they couldn't really come out of those games against Chelsea, Arsenal and Nottingham Forest without at least a win. But they've come out and they've beaten all of them. It's been fantastic. But were you always confident that it would turn around when players got a little bit fitter? They were creating chances. Was it always a case of just waiting for it to click, you think?
I think there was evidence early in the season, even though they weren't playing well, and when you get results and you're not playing well, and it hasn't clicked, and you've amassed the amount of points that Newcastle had, that when they do find the formula and rediscover that formula from a year ago or 18 months ago, then it was going to be on the up. And I think they've really built themselves a brilliant platform for this season to really push on for. I think top 4 might be beyond them, but 5th, 6th is up there. They can really mix it with the elite again, and they've proved that. Despite the lack of transfer action, which we've discussed at length, I think they've gone back to basics of that, the formula of the team that really got up to 4th place a couple of seasons ago, and it kind of bodes well with players coming back as well. Botman, Isaac hitting form, and Joe Linton on the left wing now. All those kind of elements have seemed to come together, and they've got a huge amount of momentum going. They probably didn't want the international break. Teams are now going to fear them, and the next 2-3 games, if they can keep winning, then they're going to be right up there in the top 4.
Wilson and Trippier as well, potentially back after the international break, which will be a huge boost. But we'll wait and see about Callum Wilson and if he can actually play some games. The win against Nottingham Forest, as we say, capped off a wonderful 10 days for Newcastle United. It probably moves potentially your markings up slightly for certain players. How have you come to the conclusion of the ratings that you're about to deliver?
Yeah, well, it's based on the whole season, but it does. The last few games do tweak players up. 1 or 2 marks. If there was a bit of pessimism around, you might be dipping into the 5s and the 4s, and maybe I don't think we'll go as low as the 3s because they've done okay. So yeah, player ratings are they're massively subjective, and they're one of those things which everyone has a different calibration for. Do you give 10s for just a good performance, or do you just save the 10 mark for something really special? So yeah, the marks have I think the marks probably have ticked up.
Yeah, we're going to go through, in your opinion, what every mark means in a second from 0 to 10. But the player ratings is always something that really sparks debate. It's often the most read thing on our website. It's hated by both players and fans. It's also loved by players and fans. Why do you think that is?
Well, everyone reads it because it's a very easy snapshot of a reporter's opinion of the game, and that reporter's got his own opinion. There's thousands of fans will have their own opinions, and they can react for and against it and see if you've actually called the game how they think. And Eddie Howe gave an interview just last week, I think, when he's talking about when he was a player, and he said that the first thing he looked at in the paper was the mark next to his name, and I think he said he was a solid 6 or 7 man, so at his best. But that's the first thing he looked at, and there are stories in the past of journalists being confronted by players in the mix zone or behind the scenes, and really in a huff about not something that the journalist has written, but simply the mark out of 10 that they'd given them. Lauren Robert springs to mind from the chief correspondent of the Chronicle many years ago. He'd fallen out with him, and he had him up against the wall around the back of the press room at St James's Park. And there are other examples of players refusing to speak because they're not like the mark in the newspaper. So they are kind of a weird. They do have a weird influence when sometimes, actually, I'll let you in a secret, sometimes you're filing the marks out of 10 in the old days at 70 minutes, 75 minutes into the game because of newspaper deadlines. So you weren't actually watching the full game to give the mark out. So I don't think that players should take them too personally. They're just like a benchmark for discussion, basically.
They do. And it's really funny when you think about that concept. I think when Paul Dummett did maybe one of his final interviews with the club about his career at Newcastle United, he referenced the fact that he's a solid 7. And that actually does come from my colleague Lee Ryder's player ratings, where you'd often give Paul Dummett a 7.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, ruled into this thing where if you're a number 7, you're known a bit as a Paul Dummett. And it's just funny, how much the viewers, how much the readers, and how much the players actually really do care about the player ratings. And it's also something that hasn't changed over time. We've been in this industry a long time, and things have changed, but the player ratings is something that's remained. It's a very, very simple layout, as you say. It's a snapshot of your opinion of the game, but I mean, you can tell me, but it hasn't changed, has it? From 15,
no, it hasn't,
years
and
ago?
it's even come into the lexicon of the way of football, like the way managers speak about the game, in that where they're talking about transfers or what you get from a player. Oh, he's always a solid 7, or he's always a solid 8. It actually, managers speak about, talk about players in terms of the ratings they might get in the newspaper. So it is, it's a great format, bite-sized format for expressing an opinion on the game before you can go into the tactical detail or the personality quirks of a game.
And you're going to run through what each mark means in your opinion. And what I love about reading different people's player ratings is that you can get a different people have different views on what each number should mean, and that's the beauty. I mean, I've also done my player ratings, and I suspect they might be a bit pessimistic for some. I prefer to use the word realistic, and me and Simon might clash on a few as well. But talk us through from 0 to 10 what every number means in your opinion.
I mean, covering Newcastle for 24 years, I don't think I've ever given a 10. Okay. And I know some of my colleagues have at the Chronicle as well. But a 10 out of 10 for me is being saved to see for a Newcastle player who scores a perfect hat-trick in a massive game, preferably a cup final or to win something, a trophy win, some kind of performance which has moved history. I think if you're going to get like Michael Owen, hat-trick against Germany in a 5-1 win for England all those years ago, was probably a 10 out of 10. Yeah. That was like a breakthrough thing. I think I'll be very pushed to give a 10 out of 10 for a Newcastle player in a normal game.
Well, let me throw you some scenarios out. Kevin Nolan, time we had Derby, Halloween, 10?
Well, I mean, he might be a 9, an 8.5. Am I really stingy? Am I
that
really
is
stingy?
setting the bar.
That's okay. I think that's probably a 9 or an 8.5 even. I don't think I've given many 9s out in my 24 years.
Wijnaldum when he scored 4 in a game.
That's pretty good. That's an 8, isn't it?
Is it? Oh,
no, it's an 8.5. It's an 8.5. He got 4 in a game. I can't give halves in the mirror. So
what about before your time, Tino grabbing a hat-trick against Barcelona?
That would be a solid 9, a definite solid 9. So
love that. I love that. We could
but not a 10.
We
not
could scrap the podcast and I'll just hand you scenarios for the next hour. Come on then. What else have we got here?
9. I said 10's got to be perfection of trophies, history moving performance. 9 is a significant game and a big intervention, a big kind of like the Tino hat-trick against Barcelona, something that you talk about for years. So I'm already kind of ruling out in a normal run of the mill game, like giving out a 10 or a 9, unless 4 goals for Wijnaldum, that might be kind of up there. I've given a few 8s out. That's kind of a spectacular, eye-catching performance. It's changed the game. That's been prolonged over an entire 90 minutes.
So you said, unless a big goal in a kind of history-changing game. So I'm thinking something like, Jonas Gutierrez was sealed Newcastle's Premier League status with that goal against West Ham.
And the emotion behind it.
Yeah.
The story
so how does that fold into it? Because it's all subjective, as you say, and it's your opinion, isn't it? But where would that rank?
That would be an 8. And if I could give half, so I'll maybe give it half because of the story behind it.
And also, again, because everyone's different in the way they hand the marks out, if, say, Gutierrez, I can't remember actually how he played in that game. Let's say, for instance, he had an absolute shocker, but he still scored that type of goal, which meant Newcastle stayed up. Yeah. Is it about the goal, or do you still see it as the whole performance?
I think it's probably erring towards the goal and bumping him right up there, because no matter how you've done for 90 minutes, if you produce that bit of magic, then you've elevated the game and you've elevated the result for your team. And those key moments are what make football. So I would always go up and right up, even if you've had a stinker for 89 minutes.
Sorry, I was just taking a cup of tea there. I'm listening to Simon talk about that one. So what else have we got?
Yeah, 7s. I gave a lot of 7s. That's kind of a solid performance. You've contributed to the team. You've been consistent. You've been on the ball. You've done your job. And I mean, if you get a win, if you're in a team that wins, in my book, you're generally going to get a solid 7. If you've had a quiet one in a win, you would probably get a 6, but no lower. But 7's kind of the stock mark if Newcastle win and everyone's contributed and you see a tactical plan and a formation. So 7, yeah, everyone can be happy with a 7, I think. Okay. Yeah. And a 6, I think you've done okay, but you've not stood out.
You just got written okay.
Okay. 6 is okay, it's a shrug. I think if a footballer got a 6, they wouldn't be very happy. I think every footballer is aspiring to a 7. I think if you're looking at the ratings as a player, you want a 7 or above. Now I'm a bit mean, so probably 7's your top mark unless you're doing something special. But 7, you'd be happy with. 6, you'd be thinking, I mean, that might be grounds for falling out. That might be grounds for saying, not speaking to him in the mix zone, right? If you'd seen you got a 6, okay? 5, a bit poor. You've probably played into defeat. You're not you've been a bit flat, and you've not set the world alight. You've misplaced passes, and you've lost a few tackles, and you've been pulled out of positions. 5, a bit poor. And I think if you've lost a game and you got a 5 as a player, as a team, you probably wouldn't have much argument with me, because that's what I'm starting from when you've lost a game. Is he worth more than a 5 because they've lost? Is he worth less? 4, I think if you get a 4 and you're a player, you've had a bad game and you probably know it. And as a journalist, you don't want to be dishing out 4s out of 10s willy-nilly, because that's a bit of an insult. A 4's you've had not a stinker, but you've not. And that's usually my platform for a normal game with no sendings off is a 4. And it's a bit of an insult if you dish a 4 out.
Where do people start from the first whistle? Do you have a number they start from, or is it you don't really start judging until the game goes on?
I think you start on a 5 or a 5.5, and then your contributions are building on the 5.5 from there. And then we'll go down to a 3. Now 3s are quite rare to dish out. I think this is like sending off territory or getting suspended for dissent or arguing with a teammate or showing lack of interest or bottle. Threes are quite rare to dish out, and if you're dishing them out as a reporter, you're usually fairly angry with a player's contribution. So you've got to be selective when you're dishing them out.
So we Lee Bowyer, Kieran Dyer territory here, or is that a bit lower?
That's lower.
That's lower.
So
okay.
Lee Bowyer fighting Kieran Dyer. I can't remember what I gave that day, but I would think. I mean, I've got two. I haven't got a note for two because two's like, you're really plumbing the depths there. You've scored 2 own goals, and I have seen that a hat-trick of own goals before. I've seen that happen at Sunderland. One, you've run up the pitch, done nothing, kicked a few people, and probably got sent off. Or done something. I think like the 9 and 10 mark when you've done something historically like brilliant to make a game work and be famous and win something. I think 1 and 0, and I have given zeros.
You have given zeros.
I think I've given zeros before.
Are you Newcastle United players?
I'm pretty sure that I've given zeros or 1s when Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer had a fight, or if a player does something completely ludicrous and inexplicable and gets sent off. I mean, I've covered more crises down the road at Sunderland than I have at Newcastle when they've been on losing streaks. So I've probably given zeros there. But zeros is when you've done I've written down here when you've punched a teammate and let your team. So they're pretty rare. So if you punched a teammate, sworn at the manager, walked off, giving a rude sign to the press bench. I've had that before. Very badly. Or you've sworn at the manager, if you've been substituted and caused a big furore, you're probably going to be down in the 3-2 and 1 and 0.
So there we go, ladies and gents. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on social media what you think about Simon's explanation there from 10 to 0 about how he dishes out his player ratings. You know what I should have done, actually? I've just remembered. I've got one of those Newcastle United books at home, which is made up majority of your reports. And I've got the player ratings in. I've just remembered I've got that at home in the cupboard. I should have brought it in and we could have a little look at some of the ratings you've dished out.
I admit to being quite stingy.
Okay. Well, that's not a bad
because
thing.
You want to provoke a reaction and get people playing better.
You say stingy, others might say realistic.
Yeah.
It's all about opinion. And I'm kind of a man who doesn't like to get too far ahead. I don't like to really be getting too excited about a good performance. I'm always thinking about the next game, the next performance.
Like a manager.
Yeah.
Exactly. Never get carried away.
So that goes into kind of some of my player ratings to come. We'll start with Nick Pope.
Well, Nicky Pope, he's done some really good saves. I mean, saves that some goalkeepers wouldn't have made. So he's had a very good save-making season. I think he's still, and he would probably know this himself, needs to be better with his feet.
But he's never going to be. I think we've just got to accept that's just not his game.
That is possibly true, but they can always be better. Well, there were games early in the season where, I mean, he spooned a few out of play, and the kicking wasn't working. But having said that, his main job is to dominate the area and give his teammates a sense of security, and I think he does that. And he has a presence, and he stops shots, and he stops some really good shots. So I'll be giving him probably a 7.
I've got him down as a 7.
7.5, maybe.
We'll not do half. We'll stick.
We're going with 7.
We'll stick to.
But if he keeps this form up for the last 3 games, he probably is touching towards an 8.
Yeah. So I've got 7, 3 clean sheets, 11 goals conceded. I think he's proved why Newcastle United didn't go big in the summer for another goalkeeper.
Yeah, exactly.
As we say, kicking isn't great, but I've come to accept that. It's just never going to change. But you can't argue with his shot stopping. Some standout performances. The 2-1 win over Tottenham, he made a few crucial saves in that game. And I think what I like about him in the last few weeks, he's dominated in the air a lot more. There was against Arsenal, cross after cross towards the end of the game, and the final cross at the box, he comes out, collects, and he's down on his chest, wasting a bit of time before the whistle goes. I felt just performances like that really, really crucial because, as I say, his kicking's never going to improve. Yeah. But he has to be better in the air. He was looking a bit shaky at Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. There's a few other examples, but I think in the last few games, he's looked much better in there. And I think, like you say, continues this form of late, he'll be back in the England squad and he'll be definitely pushing towards an 8 or a 9.
I would give him a 10 out of 10 for being a massive unit. I mean, we saw him on the side of the pitch getting his kit on during pre-season, and he's incredible. He's like an action man. He's like a sort of blown up, enormous action man. He's huge and strong and incredible physique. So that was the boys were impressed with that in pre-season.
Do you think it's a big season for him? Because obviously the links to James Trafford, there were links to other goalkeepers in the summer, and it does seem that Newcastle United might be edging towards buying a keeper who can play out from the back. So does another good season for Nick Pope, where he is just stopping everything that's thrown at him, does that again kick that new signing down the road?
Yeah, and I think that's his challenge. I mean, I think maybe he was. I mean, you'll have seen the reports about Newcastle looking at a keeper, and it does seem that like they were exploring like younger options and options from the under-21s, Trafford, etc. But I don't think at this point you'd be considering spending lots of money on a goalkeeper. I mean, I think Nicky Pope's the man when he's fit and he's healthy and he's sharp. I think you stick with him for this season, and if he's continuing this form this season, he's going to be the keeper next season. You're not going to commit 30 million to a new keeper, 20 million in the current situation.
And they have got 100,000 goalkeepers on the bench anyway, so they have to move some of them out. Kieran Trippier, I've gone for 5.
Well, they do miss him, don't they? I mean, do you want to mark straight away? I think this mark is in the context of his fitness and stuff as well. But I think it's probably a 4 because he's not been available, and
I think you and I disagree on the importance of Kieran Trippier in this team. I think even if he was fit, I'd still have Tino Livramento ahead him. Yeah, I think Tino Livramento was placed to lose, and I know Trippier came off the bench against Bournemouth, probably shored it up and helped Newcastle to a point. And then he started a few games after that, but I wasn't sitting there thinking he's blown Tino Livramento away. And what we've seen from Livramento in recent weeks, even when Trippier comes back and is fit, he's going to have a job to dislodge him.
He will have a job to dislodge him, but they do miss Trippier's skill and ball playing ability, and definitely the set pieces. The Newcastle haven't scored one goal from set pieces in 50 attempts or something. That's before the last 2 games. So they do miss him on set pieces, and they do miss his ability to get out of tricky situations on the right and to bomb forward on the right. I think Livramento might be a more powerful runner at the minute and a more powerful kind of defender, but I think what Trippier adds going the other way kind of unlocks teams. And I think he changed. Actually, I'm going to put him up to a 5 because he did come on as a substitute early in the season, and he changed a few games and got the help them get Bournemouth especially. So I'm going to bump him up to a 5. I apologise for the 4. But that's because of his fitness.
I do wonder with the whole set piece thing if it's kind of one of those examples of a player not being in the team and suddenly he's the best thing ever. We see it all the time, don't we, when players are injured or they can't get in the team and say, this person could be the difference. Because I remember last season and the season before having a running joke with the chap I sat next to at the game saying, is it going to beat the first man? It's a bit like a question, someone in the Premier League yet? No. It was like that, is Kieran Trippier going to beat the first man? Okay. And it very rarely beat the first man from the corner. And
fair point.
He is great with getting the ball in the box, and yes, he can deliver those corners, but I don't think his delivery is that great that I'm like, get him into the team. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I also think we are starting to see the beginning of the end for him.
Yes, we are. I think that's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if he might go, if not in January, in the summer. Tino Livramento, I've got a 7.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's better than a 6, which would be an okay. I think he's been a 7 solid. I think he's getting better all the time. I think it's good that he's got the pressure from Trippier getting fit again and potentially coming back soon, because it's going to push him on. He's in the England squad. He's been called up from just today from under 21s to the seniors again. So that's going to help him play in that environment. So it's like these players, like these transfer guys, these people that Newcastle have bought and Howe's bought, they kind of have slow starts, and he would want to be in the team straight away, but he holds them back, and it's a slow burner. And then he's really developing into the team quite nicely, very nicely, in fact. And I think he's such a strong runner when he gets on a charge, and that's what you need in your wing backs these days. And I would give him a solid 7, and I think there's loads more to come potentially as well. I think when he gets even more confident, more forceful, and thinks he's the main man, and has that position held down, I think he can get even better.
No, I totally agree with you. I think like many, it's the last few weeks where we've really seen him step it up. Superb against Arsenal, was my man of the match. Nottingham again was really, really good. Few nervous moments against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. He was caught out there, but he's bounced back. And I think it was a big task for him to actually start the season in that position, and then test the character as well to see him drop out. And obviously he's been helped by Trippier's fitness, but I've been so impressed with him. Big price tag on his head hanging over him as well, but he's just embraced the challenge. And as you say, there's only more to come. So I can't wait to see what the future holds with him on one side and Lewis Hall on the other side. Fabian Schär.
Oh, I really like Fabian Schär. I mean, he was the North East Football Writers Player of the Year just after he got bombed out by Steve Bruce, and he's always been a classy defender. Might lack a little bit of pace, although he held his own the other day in the recent matches. So I like his passing, and I think his diagonal balls, are, across from the right to the left, setting up attacks are kind of crucial. I think he's one of the best signings Newcastle have made in recent years. So cheap. So solid, such a pro, serious guy, man of few words when we interview him. Doesn't really give us many spectacular quotes, but that's fine if he's doing his job on the pitch. He's just a thoughtful guy who doesn't want to rock the boat, and he holds his end up really well. And I think when Newcastle are on top and they've got the ball and they need a centre back to be like setting play up, I think he's great. He's the ideal man. So I'm giving him a 7. I might give him a 7.5, but 7, solid 7.
I've gone for a 6.
Oh, you mean?
Because I think he started the season really well, but I think in recent weeks he's probably been very fortunate that there's not another right-side centre-back to come in and take the place off him. If you'd asked me before the game against Forest and Arsenal to a degree, which centre-back would you drop out, Burn or Fabian Schär? If you had the options, I would have dropped Schär out. I think we're starting to see him give the ball away a little bit more. I think the lack of pace is becoming an issue. I think it's a massive few months for him, not only to get a new deal, but also to get as close as he can to a guarantee that he's still going to be first choice next season.
Okay.
He gave the ball away against Forest, which led eventually to their goal against Arsenal. He was a little bit careless in possession. You're right. When Newcastle need a pass that will cut open the opposition, he's the man you want to give it to because he's superb at it. But defensively, little errors creeping into his game. I just think, he's not been at his best in recent weeks.
Harsh, Andrew. I mean, you're a tough man to impress. I think one day, Fabian Schär, 10 years' time, he'll do what Hugo Viana's done, and he'll become a sporting director or a director at a big club, and he'll be running the show. He'll be running the show off the pitch rather than on it. So he's a bright lad.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll come back in a decade and we'll see what happens. Dan Burn.
Yeah, Dan, but it's like an up and down season for Dan, but he's there and he's done brilliantly in the last few games. I'm going to give him a 7, and I think he's probably moved up to a 7 in the last few games. Where after that Chelsea away game, there was a bit of confusion about whether the centre backs were going to press into the hole where they were trying to be dragged by the Chelsea attack, or whether they dip back. So, but when there's a battle like the Forest game, Dan Burn is so forceful, so difficult to play against in a tight game. When the game's kept tight, you wouldn't want you would have him in there every day. He's really steadied the ship and got on top of his game, and he's done brilliantly, I think so. And he's deserved his place. He's much better at left side of centre back than he is at left back when he's got a winger against him. So, I mean, I think his contract's been triggered again. He's got more time at the club, which is good because he wants to be here. He's a local lad. He's kind of one of those leaders, and he speaks so brilliantly. He's such an ambassador for the club. So maybe that bumps him up as well. But he's a definite solid 7. I've got no, I mean, eventually his position will be upgraded. There will be like a Gahey or someone will come in and he'll have to be back up, and he'll come in when people aren't fit, but not yet. He's part of that formula.
I've got him down as an 8 out of 10. Plenty of discussion about whether Lloyd Kelly would dislodge Burnett left side centre back, but Burnett started every Premier League game so far this season. he's looked great, really solid in every game, but that one against Chelsea when he was caught out far too many times. But great in the air, won 68% possession of his aerial duels this season. And I agree. I think he probably knows his time is short with Botman coming back and what might happen in the windows to come. But what a start of the season he's had. I mean, against Arsenal, against Forest, to keep Chris Wood as quiet as he did. Chris Wood, the informed player of the month, absolutely superb. Like you say, the game suited him. When you have runners around him, it's not a game he enjoys playing. Still got a little bit of pace about him, but we saw against Chelsea when Jackson managed to outpace him despite having a 10-yard head start on Jackson did Burn. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, in the next couple of windows. But one thing's for certain, once that contract extension was signed, Burn came out and said, I'm not ready to give up my place, and that's such a good thing that he's, whoever comes in, he's not just going to go, right, there you go, there's the place. He's not going to go Sven Botman, come on, mate, come and get me space, your space back. He's going to battle whoever is up there, and that's what you want.
I think in his career, it's such a fairy tale story from where he's come from to end up at his hometown club, Newcastle. He will fight, and this is the trust you have in him. He'll fight for every performance. He'll fight for every time he can walk out on the pitch with a Newcastle shirt on, and he'll not give up on that dream because it's taken a long time to earn it. And he'll always want to maximise what he can from his career at Newcastle, and that's kind of a really great thing to know that a player is that committed and that to the foundations of the club.
Offers a little bit more, doesn't it? When he knows that he's achieved his dream, but he's got to keep working hard to make sure he still lives that dream, and I think that does offer you a little bit more on the training pitch. Lloyd Kelly, I've gone for 5 because he struggled to get into the first team thanks to the form of Burn and Hall. But I have been impressed with some outings. He was good against Chelsea in the League Cup.
Yes,
he's come off the bench a few times, whether at left back, centre back, and I have been impressed. Huge opportunity against West Ham in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes,
Dan Burn being suspended. He has to take that. I still think he's got the potential to be one of the best free transfers Newcastle have ever made in the Premier League. But his opportunities are limited. So, as we saw against Chelsea in the League Cup, where he really impressed, he has to make sure against West Ham he does exactly the same and give Eddie Howe something to think about when it comes to is it him or Dan Burn, and then later on Botman.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would not be as harsh in giving him a 5. I would give him a 6 because of that Chelsea League Cup game. I thought he was really good. I thought there was a debate after that game whether he should stay in because his pace, he looked quick and he looked like he could cover runs a bit better than Dan Burn. So he must be disappointed that he's not getting much, more of a chance after signing on a free transfer. But he has got potential to be a very good free transfer. He can cover at left back. With Botman coming back, he's going to be shunted again down the pecking order. But you just don't know how the season's going to unfold with injuries and suspension. So hopefully he will get more opportunities. I think he's probably better at left. He's probably better at left-sided centre half. And I think if he can prove himself to be a better passer and get his distribution and take part in play more and more precisely, then he's going to get more chances.
He's been criticised for not being as good in the air as Dan Burn, but especially in the cameo
Who's
performances.
Dan
Burn, but you know what? I don't think there's that much difference. When he's come off the bench, who was it against? When Newcastle was it against Tottenham potentially? There was one game where it was just cross after cross after cross, and he came off the bench pretty late on, and he was just winning everything in the end. It really, really made a difference. So I think he's got huge potential, and it's just about taking those opportunities. I'm looking forward to seeing him against West Ham. I wish he hadn't come in the scenario it has done because he don't want Dan Burn suspended, and he should never been a yellow card. The referee messed it up, but anyway, he has to take that opportunity. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can do. Emil Kraft.
Well, he's kind of like a quiet man of the squad, isn't he? And he just every time he's needed, he kind of just slots in and does his job. I mean, he's got injured again. He's got injured with his collarbone, but he just slots in, does his job, and without any fuss. I mean, Eddie Howe must be a delight for Eddie Howe because he can play. He's played right-sided centre back with no fuss, combative, physical, reads the game a bit. He's played right back, obviously, and he can get forward, but he's not as powerful a runner as Livramento or Trippier, but he does the job. So as a player who can cover those two positions, he's got a new deal as well, hasn't he? I think he's that's on the agenda. So he's definitely up there with. He's definitely not let anyone down. Now, whether you give him a spectacular mark like as a 7, or you say, look, he's slotted in okay and done okay and done his job, I think it's probably a 6. I'm not going to say he's 5 and he's poor. I think he's done exactly what's needed of him.
Yeah, I've gone for a 6, and I've got written down there, never lets his side down when given the opportunity. His versatility, as you've mentioned, is absolutely key. It is a shame that he's been sidelined now and looks like he's going to be out for a wee while with that collarbone. But excuse me, it's just his stock's grown. Every time he comes in, he just impresses, gets on with the game. Very simple, very effective. I'm going to give him a 6 because we've not seen a lot of him. It's not down to anything he's done. It's just, yes, he's impressed, but we've only seen him a handful of times. So I don't think you can really give him anything more than a 6, maybe a 7 at a push, but a 6 for me. And hopefully when he's recovered from this injury, he'll be back to doing what he does best, being called upon and not letting Newcastle United down. Mr. Lewis Hall.
Wow. So he's really, I mean, God, England international Lewis Hall. What a great thing that is to say after everyone was questioning him about 2 months ago, saying it was a waste of money. Probably us as well a little bit. So not sure about what he was really going to offer, but he's another one of those signings who seems to have listened to what Eddie Howe wants. A lot of personal interventions from Howe and a lot of one-on-one kind of sessions to show him what's needed and how he's got to grow into the role and he's got to build relationships with his teammates. And he seems to have done that. And he's like, actually, I think playing with the swagger is kind of the wrong phrase, but he's definitely walking with 2 or 3 more inches taller than he was at the start of the season. He obviously feels part of it now. And I think with a young player, you must be so nervous, trying to impress, everyone judging you quite quickly. And just to have that breakthrough that he's had in the last 4, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, to have that breakthrough and prove yourself that solid, that busy, that alert and kind of tenacious, it's great to see. I mean, he's looking now like a £35 million teenager, which he didn't do at the start of the season, which is why everyone questioned him. So, I mean, if I can't give halves, kind of,
no,
I'm keep giving 7s, but for 8, I want a spectacular intervention. And if he'd scored a couple of long ranges with his left foot, I would have given him an 8. But I'm giving him a 7.5 if it was allowed.
This is where we're going to really disagree here, because I've got him down as a 9. I've been that impressed with him.
Wow.
I've been that impressed with him. I've really enjoyed the journey that he's been on from not just the start of this season, but towards the end of last season when he finally got his opportunities, and you could tell he probably just wasn't right. He wasn't ready for it. And anyhow, was proved right at the start of this season. He started, maybe you could argue with a 5 or a 6, but over the last few months, he's
making the argument.
Got better and better and better. Never any doubt, attacking wise, but defensively ways. That's where he's really, really improved. He looks much more focused. He's strong in the challenge. He's more composed, and it's just been a fantastic journey for him.
I think you're talking me around. I've given him a solid 7, which is kind of a boring mark, but I think you might have talked me into pushing that up to an 8 because of that journey and because he's a teenager and he's now an England international, and we have not had the chance to say that. I mean, I can't remember the last time we've said that about a Newcastle player as a teenager getting into.
Kieran Dyer was 20.
Kieran Dyer was 20, and who else would there be?
After that, I mean, I don't know how old Genius was. Did he get a call up for
Genius? Genius might have got a call up as a teenager, 18, 20. He might have done. He was 18 when he signed, so he might have been in when he was 19. So it's 20 years since we've had that. We've been able to say that about a Newcastle player. But I think it's remarkable.
With Lewis Hall, you mentioned there, how much pressure you must be under and feel nervous. You've also got that added element that this is also his boyhood club.
Yeah.
He in his head, if he fails, you move to a team, and if it goes badly wrong, you go, yeah, okay, it didn't go well, but I move on. But it must be so much different when it's your boyhood club.
Yeah, totally. I think when anyone who plays sport, if the more you want it, kind of sometimes the harder it is to do it. The more you want to hit a good golf shot for me, or play well at tennis, it's like the more goes wrong. So you got to stay relaxed and not want it as much. He must really want to impress. And it does mean a lot to him. So
I'm enjoying the comparison to your golf swing to Lewis Hall playing in the Champions League for Newcastle.
Well, sorry, that was a poor comparison to make. My ailing sporting career. I apologise to Lewis Hall for that. So, I think just if you're in the process of sport and I think the mindset. They're elite mindsets. I'm not, but
when you
think
want
the process.
something more,
Well, what sort of saying is, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When you want something more, it's harder to get it. I think you've got to take yourself
away. It goes
away.
back to Dan Burn, doesn't it? When it's your dream and you're living it,
Yeah.
Dan Burn's kind of achieved it, but I think Lewis Hall has got a little bit more to go before you can say I've kind of made it. But that must be going in the back of his head. It's not just a club; it's my club. It's what I've always wanted to do. So, but I think the last few weeks, and look, this is the same for many of the players on this list. The last few weeks, we've seen the team step up, but when you keep Arsenal's wingers quiet, and then you keep like Langer quiet against Forest, and actually, when you look at the performance of the team against Forest, what was key to keeping Chris Wood quiet was the work of Lewis Hall and Joe Linton and Joe Willock, where they often had 2 or 3 of them around Langer and stopping the ball in the box, and that was because of the work and teamwork with Hall, being a key part of that. But I mean, to keep the likes of Arsenal's wingers quiet, it shows you the level he's gone up to now.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he had a great game against Arsenal, like standout performance, and he'll grow from that. I would have thought he might get his England debut in the next couple of days with the number of the lack of left backs England have got as well, and also the pullouts that England have had, the dropouts from the squad with injuries. So it could be a fully fledged England international soon, which will be worth an ovation when his name's read out at St James's Park next.
Well earned as well. Bruno Guimaraes, we're going to go to next.
Yeah, like Bruno's kind of.
This is the one I struggled with the most.
Yeah, what do you do? I mean, because Bruno could be a 9. He could be like that influential on a team, and we do expect a lot of him. We do expect him to do everything.
Sorry, are you saying he could be Are you saying
he could be 9, or he could be a 6
to reach 9, or what he's done this season? He could be.
I think
9.
he could. I'm debating whether he go 9 or 6.
Are you really?
Well, I mean,
do you think he's done enough this season to be a 9?
No, that's what I mean. But he could. But by the end of the season, he could be. Okay. By the end of the season, he could have the influence. He's one of those players who you could end up giving a 9 out of 10 for the season if he's getting a grip of games. But I don't think he's getting a grip of games completely. He's not been poor, but I think he's been asked to do an awful lot in that central midfield role. He's playing like he's got to cover a lot of ground and he's got to make the play. And he's brilliant at drawing fouls and slowing the game down when there's game management to be done. Has he scored this year?
No,
he's not scored this year. I didn't think he had. He's not scored, but he's been made captain as well. So he's your leader and he's your captain. I'm trying to work out where he slots in. I think he's a 6.5. I'm not going to go 7 because I think he can do better. But I love his enthusiasm. I love his goal celebrations. But I don't think it's been like the Bruno of 2 years ago where he was unpressable and you couldn't get the ball off him and he was lively. Maybe playing so regularly and so many games is kind of taking a bit of edge off. Maybe the captaincy's a burden and it's taking a bit of. It was meant to add 10% to him, but maybe it's taking a bit of edge off him. I don't think we've seen absolutely the best of Bruno, and I think there is an argument if you're starting Tonali or Bruno the way Tonali played without Bruno in the cup game, they're going to have. If there's only one central midfield spot in the midfield 3, they're going to be vying with each other for that. And I think there might be a time when Tonali gets the nod ahead of Bruno, but Bruno has got massive potential to run this show.
Yeah, I think he started the season really slowly. Again, like most, he stepped up in recent weeks, but we've got to see him adding goals to his game. Yeah. As I mentioned on the Monday show yesterday, he's only had 14 shots in the Premier League this season, which is, you want more from your main man in the middle. I think you kind of referenced it there. We all know what he can do. We've had 2 seasons of Bruno where, he's been particularly good and he's just fallen below that level, but I don't think he's been helped by the fact that the midfield 3 just hasn't clicked. On ability, you're playing Tonali, Bruno, and Joe Linton, but that's just not worked. And Bruno's form's not been at the height we expect it to be. Plenty more to come from. I've got him down as a 7 here, but listen to you, I was tempted to put him down to a 6. I very nearly did put him down to a 6, but I liked what I saw against Forest. He a little more confident on the ball. He was taking shots, but again, we've got to see that over the next few weeks consistently. I just feel like in many ways he's just been a bit meh. There's been nothing to write home about. He hasn't done anything poorly, but he's not blown you away. Yes, he's very good at winning the tackles on the edge. I mean, I hate it. I absolutely hate it when he does that, because one day he's going to get caught out and we're going to get punished for it. But I think in games you've seen him be careless in possession. He'd be a bit slow on the turn. Not the only one, but I don't think he's helped by how well we know he can play, and that's really unfair on him because it's not his fault.
Yeah.
6. I'm going to mark him down as a 6. And
I think that's fair,
more to come.
Because there's not been a standout performance. There's not been a game that's been Bruno's game, but he's done all right.
Do you know, the best thing he's probably done is when he came off the bench against Chelsea in the Cup and helped to really shore it up.
Yeah, he did.
That was an impressive substitute appearance.
Yeah.
Other than that, like you say, and people will probably correct us in the comments and say, "Oh, he did brilliant here, he did brilliant there." But again, like, Arsenal was a fantastic performance, and he did all right. But I wasn't thinking man of the match.
No,
do you know what I mean?
Like, he's in the battle of it and in the thick of it, wasn't he? So
more to come. It's not a grief, for want of a better phrase, on Bruno. It's just more to come for him. Sean Longstaff, this is the one that's going to really provoke a debate.
Like, I mean, I would give Sean Longstaff, for what he's done in the last few games and having been dropped out of the team and then come back in the way he has, I would give him an 8. I'm going to give him an 8 because that team, it's about gelling as a team. It's about having a formula that works. It's about players' relationships, making the team bigger than its sum of its parts. And I think when you put Sean Longstaff in, not the most celebrated individual player, but what he adds to the team in terms of the work he does, unseen stuff, pulling players away from colleagues by making runs, which then open things up. That kind of work and his running power, I think he adds so much to the team. It's back to the old formula of 18 months, 2 years ago, when Newcastle run that superb run. He just fits in, and when he's fit and he's fully on it, it just works when he's there. And you need that. It's like a water carrier player. He's almost like Deschamps, the French manager, Deschamps. He was the water carrier. I think that he is Newcastle's water carrier in that he does unseen work, and when he's in the team, is the win percentage for Newcastle when he's in the team is incredible. So I'm going to give him an 8, which is a rare 8.
And he speaks
so well
as an 8.
Yeah, good. And he did that podcast with Gary Lineker, rival podcast. And he spoke so well, and he's such an amazing lad, so grounded, one of the fan. He would be on the terraces if he wasn't a footballer. I think we should appreciate him more.
Yeah, I've gone for an 8 because he just provides that balance which allows others to flourish, and that's really important. He's the key that unlocks what the rest of that midfield can do. And people might not like when we say that, but the results don't lie, the performances don't lie. We mentioned it before on ability. You're picking your best 3 central midfielders. You are picking Joe Linton, Bruno, and Tonali in that space, but that does not work. What Sean Longstaff offers is that balance, great engine on him, and he's risen to the challenge as well. That's come out of some really harsh criticism, and I think he's going to have a really good season ahead of him. And it's not as simple as people on social media saying get Tonali into that team. It's like, but it doesn't. That's not how it works. It doesn't work like that. And Sean Longstaff has proved how crucial he is to a successful Newcastle United midfield. And I think if he stays injury free, it's his position to lose.
I totally agree. Like, you can't shoehorn your best players into a team. Sometimes the chemistry's not there, and he adds the balance. He adds the balance, does the hard work, does the hard graft.
Most certainly. Let us know in the comments what you would give Sean Longstaff out of 10 for the season so far. Sandro Tonali, I've got 6 because I think we're still waiting to see him at his best following that ban.
Yeah.
International level, Italy have thrown him straight in. Eddie Howe's been a little bit more cautious. Started 4 times in the league, but the form around him hasn't helped him. Impressed, as you said, in the Cup against Chelsea. I think many expect him to start against Arsenal. He didn't. Impressed in that sub-appearance against Forest, role in 2 of the goals. There's more to come from him, isn't there?
There's more to come. I quite like the way Eddie Howe's managed this, because you could have just thought, I mean, it was kind of, when his ban ended, it was kind of like the returning hero comes and here's the big fanfare, and he's going to be straight back in the team, and he's going to transform Newcastle. And that was just like not going to happen. It was too much to expect, although he had very good games with Italy, which has helped get him fit. I don't know. There's a really difficult call for how to make. It's not a difficult call. It's just who plays the best. But one question you've got to ask: is it now a question of Bruno or Tonali in that middle place, and two of them can't start together? I'm sure Tonali can start in the right-handed midfield or even the left. But is the team as effective when that happens? And I don't think it is at the minute. I would like to see Tonali get a shot at a Premier League game, running the show like he did in the Cup against Chelsea in the middle. So I thought he did really, really well. He's a different style to. I think his strengths are that when he gets the ball, he glides forward and he drives the team forward. He's looking for forward passes. He's just not content with just knocking it around. So I think this is another one of the encouraging things about Newcastle's season is that like they're up there in touch with the top four, but they've got players where once again we're saying, "God, there's more to come. He can improve. He's growing into a season, and he's getting fitter, and he's becoming more influential." When you made him the main man in the Cup against Chelsea, he thrived on it. So if Bruno gets suspended or you lose him through injury, you've got a replacement there, which is kind of a good thing about the squad. So.
But if he doesn't, that's a huge call by Howe, because you're not just dropping Bruno, you're dropping your captain as well.
You're dropping your captain as well. So it's very difficult to fit them both in. And I don't think there's going to be a change of formation, so they have them as the holding two, whether that would work. So it is a difficult call, but you've just got to. I mean, the results will do the choosing for Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a dip, then you've got the choice to make. If they lose a couple in a row, you might have to experiment or re-challenge players by dropping them. But for now, I mean, you're probably still picking Bruno because you're loyal to him, and you're putting Tonali on as a finisher. Like in the rugby, they call them finishers, not substitutes. It seems to get a better reaction if you're finishing the game and getting the win than being a substitute. And Tonali was a good finisher the other day, came on and did quite well. So, yeah, he's a finisher at the minute, and I think a 6 is probably... He's not been poor, so he's not getting a 5, a 6. He's not been 7 solid because we're not seeing enough of him, so he's getting a 6.
You need to scratch out okay there on your list and just write more to come.
More to come.
More
okay.
to come. That's a 6. That's a 6. More to come.
More to come.
Because another man who's come back into the team this time because of injury, or recovering from injury, is Joe Willock. That's made the midfield selection even more difficult for Eddie Howe in a positive way, because that's exactly what you want. Starts against Chelsea in the Cup, then Arsenal at home and Forest away. And he's just given the team a total different dynamic as Joe Willock. Explosive, always looking to go forward, brings that drive to the team, but also really good at late runs into the box as well, which is crucial. Big few months for him, I think. But if he can keep fit, he'll only get better. England probably won't be too far away. I've given him a 6 simply because it's 3 games where he's managed to not get injured and play very, very well, and it has benefited the team. But, you know, there's more to come, and we need to see it consistently. But have been impressed with him. We just haven't seen enough of him.
Yeah, I'd go 7. I think 6 is a bit harsh because he has had such an impact in the last few games, adding the tenacity and the running power and the press, and his ability to ball carry and just relieve pressure. He can drift away with the ball, sprint away with the ball, looking effortless, and help the team reset. So I think Willock's a 7. And there is more to come from him again, encouragingly. I think we want to see him stay fit. That's probably the main thing for him. If he's fit and on top of his injuries, and he gets a bit of luck over the next year, that's what we'd like for Joe Willock. And then he's a big cog in that team.
I'm just praying he stays fit, because I mentioned a couple of months ago that I would potentially cash in on him because of that injury record. But on the other hand,
quite cheaply. Did you mention 15 million?
I don't know if I went that low.
I think you went quite low. Yeah.
I don't know. You can go back and check.
30 now.
But I'd also be happy to see him stay if he keeps fit, and that's the key. You know, look, we can talk all day about Callum Wilson. He's just not going to stay fit, in my view. So you cash in the moment a decent bid comes in, even take a hit on him. But with Joe Willock, you know, he's so young that his best years are ahead of him. It's just about keeping fit, and if he can do that, he can be, you know, a main part of that Newcastle United midfield, as we are seeing now. But it's about consistency, and we just have to keep everything crossed that he can find it, he can stay injury free, and if he does that, then he's here for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I think they made a good call on him last season, just to end his season a bit early,
Yeah.
to sort out his problems. That was a good. You talk about the medical side of things and the fitness side. They showed a lot of patience there. They could have pushed him. Other regimes might have pushed him too hard, but they let him have a rest, and hopefully get to reap the rewards now.
Because it sort of goes back even to that game against Brighton when Newcastle would secure Champions League football. He got injured in that, didn't he, with his hamstring, and he went down.
Yeah,
and that was so devastating because he had such an important role in getting Newcastle up there. Brilliant season, and from that moment on, he's never really looked right, fully fit until the last few weeks. I think maybe they got Eddie Howe admitted the Fulham game. He got that wrong, didn't he? He played him from the start, and he said afterwards, got that one wrong. Seemed to have handled him a little bit better. I think he picked up an injury as well, in the weeks before the Chelsea Cup game. But he's come back and he's looked like the player of old, hasn't he? So fingers crossed it all works out for him. Joe Linton next.
Oh right, Joe Linton, God, the hero of the hour.
I think we're going to disagree on this one. I think we're going to clash on this one.
Are we going to give him a 9?
No,
we're not going that high.
I mean, you're going to give him a 9. I'm certainly not. And I love Joe Linton, but he's not a 9, not right now.
Really?
No.
I think 7. He's an 8.
I've gone 7.
7. That's tight.
I'll explain why. Southampton, Newcastle down 10 men, brilliant. He was running everywhere. He was the tank. He was the midfield general. But from that moment on, you have to go to the Man City game where he was in a hybrid role until you found another decent performance from him. People say, Spurs, he was brilliant. Well, no, he had 30 seconds of brilliance where he turned Madison and sent the ball away to Isak, wasn't it? Other than that, didn't do too much. Against City, brilliant, but he's lacked consistency.
Dropping into centre-back, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's gone from dropping into centre-back to playing left wing.
Yeah, he's been everywhere, but it's the consistency which, for me, gets him as a 7. He's excelled in the last few weeks out on the flank. Brilliant, gets the goal against Forest, but I don't think he's done enough this season to warrant anything above a 7.
Well, I'm going to give him an 8 because I think he is, like he said the word tank there. He is a tank. He is so important to the way Newcastle play and the way Newcastle gets success in terms of physicality, bullying teams, squeezing them, not letting them, winning every duel, brushing players off. If you're in a duel with Joe Linton for the ball, shoulder to shoulder, you lose out, basically. So, and then he added the goal the other day, lovely finish, curler against Forest. What a moment that was. I think he's been so versatile this year, and now he's in the position of left wing where he started off two seasons ago in that marauding 4th place finish season. We've seen him dropping back into centre back, like we mentioned, for Newcastle in this kind of a hybrid midfield role where they were trying to stifle the opposition, Man City. So I think he's right up there as one of the best players this year. I think he's a fan hero. He sets a tone. He said when Joe Linton's on the pitch for Newcastle, you're going to have a battle. It's going to be a fight.
But do you really look at the 11 games this season and say he's been at 8 consistently?
No, I've bumped him up. I bumped him up because he's hitting form now, and I'm an optimist, Andrew. I'm an optimist, and I like celebrating players who are in form.
Genuinely, if it wasn't for the last couple of weeks, I would have had him at maybe a 6 or a 7.
Well, at that point you would be saying he's not good enough on the
I've
ball.
got him as a 7, so maybe as a 6.
He's just a destroyer. He's not good enough
because his touch hasn't been there. Yeah. The ball's been slipping away from him. But again, I just think from that Southampton game up to the Man City game, he was just so off where he was last season before he got injured in the season before that. That it's he's needed to improve, and he has done in the last few weeks, but definitely not an 8.
I think he's a symptom of the team. He's got better, and the team's got better. So when you have that kind of influence, and you can drag people for that entire team forward with your force of performance, then that's an 8.
Well, let us know in the comments what you think. I think looking at the players left, there's going to be a few clashes to come as well between me and Simon. He's very generous. I'm a little bit stingy by the look.
Feeling generous today.
Anthony Gordon.
Oh, that's another difficult one.
I've gone for a 7. I've gone for a 7 because start of the season, I think what happened at the Euros affected them. The Liverpool link affected them. People feared his head had been turned. since that new deal has been signed, he's picked up his performances, 2 goals this season. He terrifies defenders, and we have seen a little bit of the Gordon of old. I do think I think the fact that Eddie Howe is alternating him, he's not getting as much game time on the left as he would like, and that's where he's best. I think that's a very, very delicate thing. I don't think we're too far away from maybe him getting a little bit moody about the fact he's not that left winger, because he's not as effective out on the right or up top. He's brilliant out on the left. We saw him against Forest.
He was quite effective when he did that cross for Isaac.
Yes. Right, but but as a whole, I think if you go to Gordon, where do you want to play? He'll say, I want to play on the left. That being said, he said brilliant against Arsenal with that cross. We saw on Sunday against Forest doing the defensive work. I think he's arguably Newcastle's most important player when everyone's on form for me. I know Isak's brilliant, but I think Gordon is so important to that team. It's just whether Eddie Howe, it's getting the balance between the benefit for the team and the benefit for the player. And does Anthony Gordon on the left consistently benefit the team to a higher level? I would argue it does.
Sometimes.
But yeah. So
some games when it's a battle, you might not put him there. But I was thinking of a 6, but then I have watched clips where Gordon is chasing back like a demon and running down opposition players way into his own half, blocking them from making a pass, winning a throw, getting a ball out for a throw, and then Eddie Howe high fives him. And I think there's a lot of work, even though we've not seen like champagne Anthony Gordon ripping it up down the left this year yet in his top form, especially at the start of the season, and there were head messing reasons for that. Now he's got his new contract. I think he's got better. I'm bumping him from a 6 to a 7 because of his unseen kind of defensive work and his commitment to that. So I think he's one of the players. He's a leader at Newcastle, and he's one of the players who's got potential for the season to be bumped up to an 8 or 9. Not many players have got that potential, and he can really hit a run of form and get up to 8 or 9.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is the one where I'm going to take the most stick for in the comments, and you're probably all going to probably throw a lot at me here as well. Harvey Barnes.
Oh, we discussed him the other day.
I've given him a 6, and people are going to say, "Are you crazy? He's joint top scorer," but he had such an opportunity to establish himself in the starting 11, and he failed to do so. There's no way really that Joe Linton should be being deployed on one of these flanks. It should be Barnes on the left and Gordon on the right. Had Barnes taken the opportunity that he was given, he hasn't taken it. Yes, he's scored 4 goals this season, and he arguably carried Newcastle through some really dark days with those goals. But it's a really strange one because he just does not have the same impact when he starts, compared to the impact he has off the bench, and that's a really strange one, and that gets him a lower mark in my opinion.
Does it? Yeah. Because I think people who finish the game and make an impact are just as important as the people who do the grinding and the hard yards for the first hour.
They are, but he's a £38 million player who was given the opportunity to make his position, the left wing, his own, and he hasn't taken it.
He hasn't, has he? He hasn't. He's probably like, is he now 3rd choice left winger behind Joe Linton and Gordon?
And this is despite the fact he's scoring goals and, like you say, finishing games strongly. But
you see, I'm not giving him a 6. I'm giving him a 7 because he comes on and he's direct, and against tired defenders, he has an impact and he scores goals. So I'm giving him a 7. I know I said the other day that he might be one of those that's not satisfied with doing that, and he might be one of those that they would cash in on eventually because he's not happy not starting. But if I was a player and I was coming off the bench and I was regularly coming off the bench and scoring and ripping defenses apart like that and winning games, helping win games, I wouldn't really care. I'll just get myself ready for that. But I'm happy being a super sub.
He does care though. He wants to start. He said it after the Forest game.
Yeah.
And it's just about that missed opportunity for me. Look, Lewis Hall versus Lloyd Kelly. There's an opportunity there. Lewis Hall won that battle. Lloyd Kelly didn't do much wrong, but Hall won that battle. And we've got other players coming up now. Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron. Again, more Jacob Murphy than Almiron. Had an opportunity to really stake a claim and just failed to do so. And for me, that's what marks him down, because I'm not buying it that every single player wants to start a game of football. They want to start. Yes, you might be brilliant coming off the bench, but if you're not in this game to start from the first whistle, then you might as well not be in the game.
You're in a
And
moody with the manager, aren't you?
Harvey Barnes had the opportunity to say, "This is my place, this is my position," and he just didn't take it.
You're right. I agree with all that. But for me, have the impact and be happy.
Do you think he is going to be happy with constantly be on the bench? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But great to see him scoring goals. And look, I think he's got the potential to prove the doubters wrong. I've said it consistently that he will be worth every penny Newcastle paid. But I am frustrated that we're talking about him being on the bench when he had that opportunity to make the left wing his own. Jacob Murphy, as I've mentioned there, I've given him a 5.
Well, I mean, he's had a few flashes of brilliance, which Jacob Murphy can do, and he's incredibly quick. But I think really I'm probably giving him a 5. I don't think I'm going as low as a 4 because he never like down tool. He never looks like bad, or he never looks like he's not putting a shift in for the team. And I think some part of the reason why he gets picked on the right wing is because he puts the shift in and he's tactically good. But I'm probably erring between a 5 and a 4.
His efforts there, you can never doubt that. Loves the club, living the dream. But again, it's another one who's just wasted the opportunity. Great pre-season. We all know Newcastle United need a right winger, but when they didn't get one in the summer, we looked at Jacob Murphy's pre-season and said, well, actually, maybe he can get us to January. He started the majority of the games. Almiron's nowhere to be seen. And he just didn't take it. There's been a couple of games where you've gone, yeah, okay. I think against Tottenham, he was quite good off the top of my head, if I'm not mistaken. But we are again sitting here saying, Jacob, man, you had the chance. And that's again why he gets a 5 for me, because I just think it's a massively wasted opportunity for him.
I'm not going to argue with that.
Miguel Almiron, it's over for him.
Well,
I mean, it's done.
I mean, he's in terms of his impact this season. I mean, I love his smile. I mean, I especially love the picture of his picture of his little boy with his thumbs up, giving a smile. He kind of makes everyone smile. But I mean, really, he's not the future of Newcastle. He's kind of in reserve at the minute.
Probably not even the presence.
He's not going to be the future of Newcastle. He's not going to rediscover that form, I don't think. Howe will continue to be complimentary about him, but he's not getting off the bench these days, is really. So I think in January he's probably one of those that might try and tickle into the transfer market and get a bit of money in.
Tried the last 2 windows,
haven't they? But if they're asking too much. We've got to test the market.
Got him for 4. I've gone for 4 because he's just not featured. It's like what you can't. Like, he's just not been given the game time, has he? So
I'm just going to 3 or 2. He's not there. He's not there.
I think the game.
It's not his fault. 3 or 2. That's not his performance. It's just like he's not. He's in terms of influence on this season.
He started 1 game, didn't do too much against Wimbledon. I was slightly, but I thought he was probably the best player on the pitch, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a great game, was it, in the League Cup against Wimbledon? And then he can't get off the bench at all.
He's not trusted to get off the bench now.
No, so I think it's done for him. Unfortunately, it's been quite the fall off because Howe used him a lot in the first couple of seasons, and then we've gone from pretty much starting every game to not even featuring. So it's a massive change in tact from Eddie Howe, but one that you can't argue with because they need a Brian Mbeumo and Anthony Elanga in January or the summer, don't they? So we know that. William Asula.
Oh wow! So look, I mean, it's really harsh even giving him a mark because he's come in as a young lad and his goals record isn't great, but the game where he showed us there is a bit of potential was the Chelsea Cup game when he came on, and I think he's good at running in behind, and he's got good pace and good physicality, and I think he's one of those it's strangely for a centre forward. I don't think you're going to put him on in a tight game where you need where there's players squeezed and you need the game changing. I think he's one to put on when you're actually ahead and the other team's chasing it, and there is space in behind and defenders committing forward a bit more, and the game is a bit more open. So I think they might be using him in games where they need to just get a fresher centre forward on, protect Isaac a bit when Newcastle are winning. So I think Newcastle playing better and being in winning positions will benefit Asula getting off the bench more. But I don't think he's shown that he's kind of cute or clever enough at the minute to engineer himself positions and goals in terms of a tight game. So like there is potential there, but there's not.
Should we not give him a mark then?
I think we don't give him a mark because I
Okay.
don't think you can condemn like a 20-year-old lad who's just arrived, who's had a few sub appearances. I think it's harsh to give him a
I've
mark.
seen enough to be
What would you give him?
positive and optimistic.
6.
No. Just I've seen enough about future of him at Newcastle
Yeah,
United.
I think we do a passing comment rather than a mark on him.
Well, the man he is currently vying with for place in the starting 11 is Alexander Isak.
Wow, he 5 goals this year, 4 in a row. 4 he scored in his last 4 games. What a great streak that is. Alexander Isak is the main man at Newcastle, probably for this season so far, and probably for the future of this season. He's been superb. He's back to his best. Eddie Howe, before this scoring streak started, and there was talk about why Newcastle weren't renewing his contract and whether he was the next off the rank in terms of getting a new contract. Eddie Howe laid him down a challenge and said, Alexander Isak's got to start playing. You've got to earn it. You've got to earn the right to a new contract. You've got to earn the right to have deals negotiated and get pay rises. And whether Newcastle can afford that pay rise is debatable. But he certainly rose to that challenge, and he started to get the goals. That goal against Arsenal from Anthony Gordon's cross was like the Asprilla goal in the Barcelona game all those years ago. A really memorable, impactful goal, which kind of turns the season around a little bit. And I'm going to give him, on the basis of what he's done, and I think he can get even better, an 8.5, touching on a 9. I'm going to be generous. I'm touching him on a 5 goals.
I'm going to have to just remind you.
Am I getting carried away?
No halves. No halves.
Just all right, I'm going to do what Eddie Howe did and just bump him down to an 8 and say he's got potential to be a 9 for this season if he can get another 25-goal haul. Now, what annoys me about the Alexander Isak situation is everyone's talking about him nationally. He's Newcastle's biggest asset, and I'm absolutely sick of that debate being around who can afford Alexander Isak, where's he going to go next, rather than how Newcastle can win a trophy with him or how Newcastle can get in the top 4 with him. It's all, oh, look, Alexander Isak auditioning for Arsenal or auditioning to be going to Chelsea. Now, Newcastle are not getting deserve more respect than that as a club. And if Premier League rules are going to end up with Newcastle having to sell Alexander Isak to prop up their finances, then the Premier League have got it wrong. That is not creating a competitive competition where clubs like Newcastle, who are ambitious, can thrive.
Yeah.
So that's what really annoys me, and I'm really quite sick of being a North East correspondent and the entire coverage of football being centred around Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, when there's an ambitious club with some great players like Newcastle going kind of ignored and kind of sidelined because of what's happening with the rules holding Newcastle back, and with this constant debate of having to talk about which elite club, so-called elite club, which Newcastle are 1 point behind at the minute, by the way, Isak's going to get sold to. Absolutely sickens me, and I think it should stop. And I think Newcastle should be allowed to be ambitious and keep Isak and win something with him.
I totally agree. It's as if Simon watched the Monday show yesterday and also heard my rant, because you guys know I said something similar, but I totally agree with you. Do you think when it comes to the Arsenal interest, is there more risk of Newcastle being forced to do something because of the rules rather than Isak saying, I want to go to Arsenal?
I think the biggest risk is Arsenal being able to, we're talking about, again, having just had that rant, we're talking about Isak moving, but the biggest risk for Newcastle losing Isak is the pay rise you can get elsewhere. And footballers are in their career as entertainers to maximise the money they can make out of their careers. And at the minute, Isak's one of the top earners already. There's not much further Newcastle can go to in the current structure to pay him any more. And the biggest vulnerability is Alexander Isak being able to get several £1 million a year more at another club who are in the Champions League, who are with the turnover 3 times Newcastle's.
Get the European football for next season, get a cup win, and Isak will be here for the foreseeable future. I've given him an 8 simply because the last 10 days was so important for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United, and he's helped them to some fantastic wins. He's back among the goals. I think he got a little bit too much stick in the middle part of these 11 games for being out of form, especially. He got a lot of stick after the Brighton game. He's just returned from injury. What are you expecting?
Yeah.
Like, he shouldn't have played against Fulham either. And, yes, he scored one against Tottenham. It was a tap in. But again, he's not held by the standards he set last season, which was so high. And again, we always kind of compare to what went last season. But he's back amongst the goals, absolutely superb. Like I say, he gets an 8 from me simply because of the last 10 days when Newcastle United needed victory, and they got it in all of the games. They needed victory, and so brilliant. Shall we just quickly finish with the mark for Eddie Howe?
Oh, Eddie Howe. Yeah, well, his biggest challenge is he hasn't overcome it yet, but I'll give him a mark. So I'm going to give him an 8 based on no, I'm going to give him a 7 because they're only 8th in the table. If they're in the top 4, I'd give him an 8. I think he's nearly an 8 because one of the hardest jobs in management is to turn around a narrative that's ebbing away from you and that's becoming negative.
Yeah.
And it's one of the hardest jobs in management. And Eddie Howe and his team have done that. And one of the hardest jobs in management is to think your best team and a new formula that's going to work, and then it not work, and then to discover a new formula that works, or the new old formula, actually, in Newcastle's case. So Eddie Howe has done brilliantly to kind of batten down that narrative that he's under pressure and he's not the man to take Newcastle forward, and he's been there too long, 3 years there, 3 years last Friday. He's done brilliantly to batten down that and finish it once and for all for this season. And a manager, the biggest challenge for a manager is to rebuild teams and refresh teams, and he's had no significant signings for guaranteed first teamers in the last 2-3 transfer windows. So to keep Newcastle refreshed, he's had to go back to an old formula with new guys coming in, and it's kind of working again. And they've rediscovered the mojo, rediscovered the energy, rediscovered their forceful style of play. All the old, I hate the word dirty, but all the old tricks of winning free kicks at the right time and giving and fouling other teams, that's all back, and they're on the up. And I think for the rest of the season, we're going to be quite optimistic that Newcastle are going to be pushing up there with the elite and knocking on that door again and upsetting some of those richer teams. And that's what Newcastle's got to be all about.
Yep, fingers crossed that comes true. I've been Andrew Musgrove. He's been Simon Bird. This has been the Bird's Eye View via the Everything is Black and White podcast. Player ratings of the season so far. Do get into the comments and let us know whether you agree, disagree with us. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Please give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the audio channel, thank you as always. Leave us a rating and review. And also click on that NORD VPN subscription and help support the podcast. And for myself and Simon, we shall see you guys very soon.